Deputy Mayor Martins online, so it's really important so that she can hear that you use your mic and get close to your mic when you're speaking, so she has a fighting chance of hearing what you're saying. So with that, we need to adopt the agenda as presented. Do you have a motion on that? Oh, Councillor Yushishin. All in favor? Okay, I see. Okay, that's carried. So the first agenda item was the hospital land discussion. And I put this on just because I wanted to clarify, I guess, some of the stuff that was in the paper last week, just so that that there's no confusion on how, what had happened, and because there seems to be some misunderstandings and stuff that, 3 people made a decision somehow. And I guess I want to throw it open first to say, okay, well, where's the confusion? Like, in my head, it's always been clear councils made those decisions. And so I just want to clarify where now, where the confusion is, so that we're not on the same wavelength in what's happened there. So I guess I'll throw it open for some discussions. There's no real. Use your mic and get.
I'm in the same boat. I don't know where the confusion came from, because the one thing I do remember is we all agreed that that we were not moving ahead, and the person that the article claims is questioning this was one of the reasons I made my decision, because she clearly stated that we as town council are not in the business of real estate, and so we don't need to be moving ahead on this. So I have some concerns with what the article says and the way it's portrayed, and that's where I sit right now.
Okay, thanks.
Mayor, I'm sorry, you have to repeat that. I heard zero.
Oh, you couldn't hear him? Oh, okay.
0.
Basically, he's under the impression that council made the decision, and he feels that, one of the councillors that didn't feel that they made the decision, why he changed his mind, or he agreed not to go ahead with the purchase of the land. So that was
John himself or another councillor?
well, no, John made the decision that he didn't want to, based on discussions that was had by council and specifically one of the council members.
Okay, is there someone else that is speaking next?
Yes, Councillor Yushishin.
Okay.
And you want to be next after that?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, that's Dad, is that? Yeah, no, I just want to second that. It needs to be clarified, and if we need to clarify it again, it needs to be clarified, and once and for all. Or else I'm going to be bringing my note, like all my notes, which are actually on the video. So to be point blankly asked to recall things, which I don't know I'm going to be asked to recall, and I don't have it in front of me at that moment in time. So, I don't mind the questions, I don't mind the open, I don't mind the transparency, but I have to be prepared if we're going to be asked those questions, which I think we've answered those already. It was not a tough decision, it was a decision that we had to make, and we made it as a council for the specific reasons for that. So, I think it's important where we looked at all the factors and looked at it inside and out in that regard. So I would just like the facts to be the facts, and I guess that's why it's on the agenda.
Okay, Councillor Martins.
I'm sorry, I'd like to hear what Councillor Yushishin said. I know she was talking. I could hear her more audibly, but I couldn't hear a word she said. I just heard like a female voice.
Correct me if I don't summarize this correctly, but I believe what she basically said that she feels that council made the decision. She wasn't, some of the questions that were put forth, I believe at the last council meeting asking about it, she didn't have her notes there and wasn't really prepared to answer them because she wasn't positive. But other than that, does that summarize it?
For the most part.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Councilors Dunn and Yushishin. And I'm going to reiterate, this is exactly why I did not want to do this meeting like this. If these are important topics, it's hard. It's hard to have you repeat. I remember when I chaired, I did the same thing to you, and it's not easy because then you've got to put words in their mouth. My question is not what we decided, how we decided. My question is when we decided. That's my. So I looked at my meeting notes. April, we had let's get back to March. March 28th, we had a meeting. We went into closed session, but I believe that was about some sort of market adjustment for wages. So that was March. Then in April, we had another meeting. I believe, remember that we had a presenter, we went in camera, all of that. So I believe that April was the second part of that in-camera session. Good. So those two make sense to me. Then our next meeting was May 23rd. However, I'm hearing, again, I cannot make certain, which is why I'm asking all of you. May 23rd was our next meeting. Again, there was an in-camera discussion. But if May 18th was the date by which we responded to AHS, how was that decision made between April and May 23rd? That's my question is just about timeline. It doesn't matter what we decided because as you know, I can defend that. That's easy. I just cannot speak to timelines.
Yeah, and again, some of this, my understanding of this when I look back at it is that the discussions, a lot of those discussions took place at the Committee of the Whole meeting on April 22nd, where we decided not, that's where a lot of those discussions happened.
Sorry, Mayor, you broke up there, like it said, Highbury, whatever, internet something. So you said, you started to speak and then, so what did you say about where the discussions took place?
I know a lot of the discussions was on the Committee of the Whole meeting, April 22nd.
Okay. But we didn't make any directives or resolutions, because I guess we can't at a Committee of the Whole, correct?
Well, and there, you don't make, normally make a negative motions, even if it was at a regular motion of council. You don't say we are not buying the land, right? So that wouldn't be a motion that we made, it just wouldn't, so.
Would it be a motion to say, like how would we have made that motion for the communication to have happened May 18th? What motion would we have made or could we have made?
Well, I guess the discussion at the time was that we were not interested in the land and pursuing the purchase of the land. Right, and so there wasn't a motion made.
Okay,
It was the discussion that was.
Okay, but how do we give directive then to our CAO to go ahead and respond without a motion?
We had the motion, or the discussion that we weren't interested in, that's what he acted on. Now, and that's my recollection, but is there any other, that's my recollection of this, but I could be wrong too, right? Is there any other discussions on that we're missing? So I think for me anyways, I think to say that, who made the decision, it was definitely council. And it was definitely discussed at council that we did not want to proceed. I think I'd just be surprised if there's any discussion about that any different. I can't understand that, specifically when did this happen? because, you know, some of it was in camera, it might not have been, there was no formal motions coming out. But, you know, that's where I just wanted to have that discussion. Councilor Martins?
Rouse the room.
No, no,
Anyone else? Okay, so I want to make a motion that sorry, you're stuck, can you hear me?
No, we couldn't hear you for a second. I can hear you now, but what you said earlier, I couldn't hear.
All I said was if there's anyone else in the room, I'd rather them go first. I'd like to make a motion, but I'd like to have everyone finish speaking before I do that. So if you want me to proceed, let me know.
Right, when she makes her motion, say it, maybe type it out just in case it breaks up. Like,
Yeah.
in the chat.
So we'll get it and repeat it so everybody hears it.
Okay.
That's all right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep, absolutely. We got some other discussion first.
I'll stop.
I think just for everyone that's in the room and again through the chair, that was the April 22nd meeting.
Could you speak up, please?
Sure. Again, through the chair, that was at the April 22nd meeting, so there was no positive motion coming out. And I was directed to advise administrative staff at Alberta Health Services that council was not interested in the land at that time. There were two subsequent meetings, one on September 7th, where council reconsidered the acquisition, again in camera. There was no positive motion coming out of that. The item was again dealt with by council at September 12th, and there was a positive motion coming out of that meeting for me as the CEO for the town to submit a bid, which I did. Just the correction in the most recent article, there's a number of 300,000 floating around. I have no idea where that number's come from. The town's bid was not 300,000. It was substantially below that number. So I don't know where that fact or infactual information, invalid information, incorrect information is coming from. But council never considered a bid in that dollar range at all, anytime, at any date. So just for clarification.
Were you able to hear that? No. Okay. Basically, we had a meeting on the April 22nd meeting was the first time that we had discussed this, and he mentioned that we had additional meetings, September 7th, where we discussed this and decided not to proceed again at that meeting. And then on September 12th, we discussed it again, and at that time we decided to put in a bid. And we know that the bid was not successful. We were asked if we wanted to increase our bid. We were given the opportunity to increase our bid, and we decided not to. So those were all the decision points that we had in there. Go ahead, John.
I guess the other thing I want to address.
Could you speak
from
up, please?
Sure.
Good.
I guess the other thing from that article that I want to address is the fact that it insinuates that our CEO was the one that was making that decision. And I need to clearly state that our CEO was the one person that recommended that we buy that property. So that when I hear things like that and read things like that, I question what's the purpose, why are people creating issues that are truly not there. And so, yeah, that's my statement on that as well.
Okay, and perhaps I'll ask Councillor Stenhouse, because you were the one that, made the comment that you don't know who made the decision. You got any comment?
thing before, please? Before Stenhouse votes?
Basically, John said that the CAO was the one actually recommended or advised that we should buy the property. And so to say that the CAO made the decision on its own, and the article in the paper is not accurate. Councillor Stenhouse?
Like I told the delegation when I was asked, I cannot recall the timelines. The question was, when were you first aware? I cannot recall the timelines.
Yeah, and that's fair. I can understand that. And I guess when I look at the newspaper article and it says that, who made the decision, I don't know if you were misquoted or if that's actually what you were saying. But I mean, I think council would have to agree, I would think, that we were all in on those discussions and made that.
I was not interviewed by the newspaper.
I think that was at the last meeting, isn't it? That was our last meeting, wasn't it? Asked by the delegation. Or do I have that?
No, it did, and Councillor Stenhouse did say that the last week.
Yeah.
But Just wanted to
Oh, sorry, I missed
clarify
that.
where that
Yeah, that's, yeah.
where that
was that.
quote came from.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry,
anything-
Mayor, who quoted what, and what did Councillor Stenhouse say in recap?
Councillor Stenhouse said that she cannot recall when the decisions were made, and that she's not sure where the quote came from because she wasn't interviewed by the paper.
And what quote? Was there something quoted about her?
In the paper, yes, that she wasn't sure who made the decision. Okay, is there any other discussion on this article? Councillor Daneka?
I just want to say through all of this, I believe at every time that this issue was discussed, all councils were present. At each meeting when the issue of the hospital land came up, I believe every councillor was present for every discussion. Except for possibly James, because he,
On the
On
committee
the
of the
committee of
whole
the whole.
meeting on April 22nd.
right, because he, but other than that, any other discussions on the land, every councillor was present, either in person or via Zoom.
And I think our CEO has something to add.
I would definitely concur with that, with the exception of the September 12th meeting where Councillor Stenhouse did not attend that meeting. But all other meetings, my notes, the minutes, the attendance records, the claims, expense claims submitted by councillors support that all members were present at the meetings.
So I stand corrected on Councillor Wakel from the
I wasn't, but-
April 22nd and Councillor Stenhouse from September the 12th.
Okay, so can we but just be clear, I wasn't at the April 22nd.
That's what I just
Yeah,
said.
okay, yeah, sorry, I went to.
That's what I just said.
Okay.
So, and just to be clear from the outset, for me, and quote me, and you can tell me if I'm mistaken, but I believe right from the start, myself and Councillor Stenhouse were never in favor of purchasing that land right from the start. We never waffled, we never said yes or nay. We were all, personally for me, I was never in favor of being involved in that one bit. Councillor Stenhouse, I remember you not being in favor from the get-go. I could be wrong, but that's my recollection.
Okay, so just, okay.
Again, sorry not to be problematic, but since that's coming up,
Is it so hard to speak up? Like, we are the people here sitting here, we'd like to hear what everybody has to
Yes.
say.
I will attempt to speak up,
Please.
and thank you for those comments.
Okay.
So again, I would reiterate, that's generally the consensus. My consensus notes where there was 3 councillors, including Councillor Martins, that wasn't in favor. I believe Councillor Dunn has stated I was advocating all the way through the process that council should seriously consider the acquisition of the lands. Somewhere between the September 7th meeting and the September 12th meeting, there was a change of heart in the councillors, so the consensus of council was to then submit a bid. So,
Why wasn't that in the minutes?
We're not entertaining comments right now, because, so I just want, we wanted to go over and make sure that we were clear on what had happened, I guess, as much as we can be in what happened there. So, yeah, we can leave it at that, unless you, Councillor Martins, had a motion that you'd like to make.
Yeah, so I didn't hear anything that Donna said, though I heard that Donna spoke and I heard that the CEO spoke. So the only words I have here is Donna said something like issue, and then she said every councillor, but other than that, I know nothing. So would you recap what Councillor Donna said and what the CEO might have responded, please?
The comment from, and make sure you correct me if I misinterpret something here, but in a nutshell, said that she believed all councillors were at the meetings where the land was discussed, with 2 exceptions. Councillor Wakel was not at the April 22nd meeting, and Councillor Stenhouse was not at the April 12th meeting, or September 12th. Yeah. So those were the 2 exceptions, otherwise everybody was there. There was a motion, and she also indicated that, there was herself and Councillor Stenhouse that were fully against it from the start, never wavered, and yeah, those were, in a nutshell, the comments.
And the CEO's response?
That was part of his response, was who was attending and who wasn't, and that as of on April 12th, there was a change in
September 12th.
or September 12th, sorry, there was a change, and we did vote to make the offer. So that was the discussions. Yeah.
Oh, great, awesome. And so you said something like not accepting comments. Did someone ask the question or make a comment?
Yeah, the gallery that was here had made a comment, but because we're not in that kind of an offering, we're just moving ahead.
Okay, so may I, is everyone done speaking? Because I don't want to interrupt, if everyone hasn't.
Yeah, no, you can go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'd like a motion to request the email communications or written communications, whichever way they were, to council. I think we've made that via email, but it may not be formal, so I'm formally making a motion to request from administration the email interactions, especially in the months of March, April, May, because that seems to be the cloud, and I'd like to just, erase the cloud, and so that's the motion, and I would like a recorded vote, please.
Okay. I guess there's a couple of things to discuss on that one, and right off the bat, number one, there is a massive amount of communications with AHS, and so it's long email chains is what I understand, because a lot of the discussions with AHS were with the reclaiming of the land and the discussions on the repairing of the culverts, and so a lot of things were there. The email where the decision was made, or the AHS was notified, that's easily shared, but to say, all communications with AHS on that it's massive. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. I take that.
Okay, go ahead. No.
The chair may wish to consider that being an invalid motion, given the fact that that issue is subject to the code of conduct currently under investigation.
Not to be problematic, but on the September 12th meeting minutes, there is nothing in there with regards to hospital discussion. Nothing,
Why is it not in the minutes?
not a single thing. So you guys are sitting here trying to justify your actions, your decisions, and all the rest of this. And nobody's angry because you didn't buy the property. What they're angry about is because you did such a poor job communicating it to the rest of the community. That's the root of the issue. Own it. Because that's the issue. Had you bought it, you probably would have screwed it up anyhow. But the issue is how you
Guys,
communicate.
You know what, we're not taking comments at this meeting.
The issue is how you communicate with the community. That's the issue. That's the root of all of it. You guys amongst yourselves can't even, you can't even keep track of what you're doing. September 12th, there's not a single note in here about the land sale.
Okay, we're not, again, I'll reiterate that we are not taking comments from the gallery at this meeting. And you're more than welcome again to come to our regular meeting council and.
Brian, I'll sit here and bark all night if that's what it takes.
Yeah.
You get no answers.
So, all right, so we had the motion. Yeah.
My motion, massive amount of email, what does that mean? Does that mean 5 pages, 25 pages? Because we've certainly sent around documents that are, that length of
And
size.
there's also a comment about, because some of those are involved in the code of conduct investigation, that it should wait until after that is completed.
But that has nothing to do with anything. I mean, we're just talking about the land. We're not talking about, we're not talking about the investigation. Just the land. It really, if you want to make it smaller, just April and May. I mean, those are the real, I'm not sure why they cannot be shared.
Yeah, so is there anything dealing with April and May that would be a problem that you see?
And I would encourage council to get a legal opinion because some of those emails, again, are confidential emails. And I'll leave it at that.
So his comment was that some of those are confidential, so we may want to get a legal opinion before we release it. And we probably should, just to make sure that we're not endangering, ourselves or putting anything at risk. But again, with the spirit of being, open and sharing, I agree with you. But we should make sure that we're not jeopardizing ourselves either and just getting that opinion. So that's my thoughts, but the rest of council can make their opinions on it too. Councillor Dunn?
I'm just saying, we don't have the right to give information from a second party that is expressed that this is confidential information. So we have to make that choice. Unfortunately, we can give you everything that we've said, but you're not going to get the other side of the conversation.
Okay, so we have the motion to share all of the notes from, I'm going to say, April and May from AHS. Is that your motion, basically?
Well, I mean, I'm thinking about finiting myself. I really want the discussion, like you say, the culvert. I want those discussions. Like what, if council is, not council, sorry, if administration is responding on behalf of council, and I don't know, and I'm council, then someone's speaking on my behalf and I don't know. So I want clarity, openness. I want to know. I'm not even asking for it to be made public. I would just like it to be made public to council. Maybe that can give us more assurance that, there's no, we're not, for now, I mean, I don't know if, but yes, I'd like them to be shared because there's no question that we discussed it, but it's the when.
All right.
And there was also commentary about, hey, this was the deduction process because of the culvert. I want to know how that map came up from HS, or, so it's easy to read. I don't want third-hand information. I don't think I'm asking for anything anomalous. If we instructed this kind of communication, it should be no issue to make it known. And I did request and a timeline around when we can expect that, because it's just copy and paste or forwarding, right, and just putting into a PDF. It shouldn't take loads of time, but from that administration to produce those communication pieces.
I'm not sure if you heard what Councillor Dunn had said, but he had said.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't, sorry.
Part of his comment was that, we better check to make sure we're able to release like an email from somebody else, if they were thinking that their emails were confidential. For us to release their emails might not be justified, because otherwise it's one, yeah.
Right. So do we need third-party consent to release emails sent by AHS or another person? I mean, because, what kind of consent is required?
Well, and that's what we were saying, that we should probably get a legal opinion to make sure that we're not violating any issues there. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, and we have a recommendation that we get a legal opinion before we act on that.
Can we table the motion? I think Sasha made the motion, right? Can we table the motion until we have that legal opinion? Would that be all right, Sasha?
Their ask was, can we table the motion until we get a legal opinion, and then we can vote on it at that time? Or perhaps we can make a motion at this point in time to say we would like to get a legal opinion on that, and then we can bring that motion back and go from there. Table might not be the right word, but defer this until another time. Yeah.
There's nothing from April all the way to September.
Okay, we're all right with that? Because otherwise we can.
But what are we agreeing to? Do you want me to add into my motion first to obtain legal counsel?
Yeah.
So what is the legal counsel for? Is it just to determine whether or not we can share third-party information?
Yes,
I mean,
that's
but
correct.
the email from AHS Infrastructure would have come to the town of High Prairie, meaning all of the officials. I don't think that they would be like, oh, you, councillor, cannot see it, you, councillor, cannot see it, only the CAO can see it. AHS would never have that intent to not allow an email from AHS to be known to council, because how else do you make a decision if you can't see their email? I don't understand why privilege.
There's a difference between, maybe council seeing it and all of the public seeing it. And there's a difference with just making sure that your assumptions are correct. Because you're making an assumption that they're fine with it, and maybe they're not.
Was confidential written on them?
Yeah.
Okay, so we
I
have.
will amend my motion then to say that all material be made available to council only at this junction, and there should be no legal ramifications to that, because I can't imagine AHS asking only administration to make a decision without the support of that municipality's council. That makes no sense to me. Why AHS Infrastructure would not would be somehow, stop council from being privy to any discussions. That doesn't even sound normal. Okay, the public maybe, but I'm privy to it. So I'm happy to amend my motion to have it be all of the information to council by in a week.
Okay, just.
No.
There's protection on email. There's protection.
Yeah.
So again, as I articulated earlier through the chair, council has an ongoing code of conduct investigation. That subject request and emails are subject to that investigation process. The investigators made it clear to all council members that all material being dealt with shall remain confidential until council considers the results of that code of conduct investigation. So, from my opinion, I'm recommending that motion, and I'm not chairing a meeting, but I would recommend the council may not consider that motion.
Okay, so what he was saying is that some of that information is under the code of conduct investigation or could be construed as being under there, so council may not want to consider that motion, was the CAO's input. All right, so we have this going around. They want all of the emails to council. And what are you referring to? Were you saying I just want to clarify, was it the April-May timeframe? Yes, okay. And so that's the motion. We have some.
Can I be clear, did she not amend it though to add that we would seek legal counsel?
No, she doesn't feel that we need legal counsel on this one. She just feels that AHS would agree to that.
So I can advise
Well,
you
can
as
you please explain my rationale to whoever asked that question, because it's council. No government entity asks an administration to make a decision or to be privy to things, and please hide this from your council. That is never, no government entity would do that, or any entity. So could you please explain that rationale to whoever asked that question?
They can hear you perfectly fine. Yeah. So they can, any other discussion before we put the motion to vote?
I'm not clear on the motion.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Sasha, they wanted clarification on the motion. Perhaps you can restate your motion so that we're all clear.
Certainly, I'm asking for a recorded vote, and my motion is that council be, so that the materials of correspondence between AHS Infrastructure and the town administration, or town council, I mean, I know we wouldn't normally, but let's just include it. Any communication on the land deal be made privy to council within whatever administration finds reasonable. I'm saying within a week, but if they need 10 days, let me know, but I'm saying within a week at this point.
Okay.
Within the time frame of, April, May, because those are the times that we're unclear about. So April, May.
Okay. Everybody understand the motion? Yes? All right. It's a recorded vote. All in favor? 1, 2, 3. Those opposed? There's 4. The motion is defeated.
Okay, and so who were the not in favor? I'm sorry, I can't see.
The 3 in favor was Councillor Stenhouse, yourself, and Councillor Wakefield. The others were opposed. And so I will make the motion that council get a legal opinion on sharing the emails. And yeah, that'll the emails regarding the hospital land and council and or public to see if there's any issues. Any questions on that motion?
Recorded vote.
A recorded vote. We had a request for a recorded vote.
Sorry, Mayor, may I ask for 30, unless there's no one else asking to speak?
Yes.
So your email is to seek legal counsel, whether these emails can be shared to council and to the public. Those are two different legal opinions, because I think sometimes council can be privy to things that the public may not be privy to. So do you,
I want to
feel
get
like
an
are you
opinion on
making
both.
both inclusive?
On one and or both. right, any other questions on the motion? All in favor? Opposed? 2 opposed? Councillor Martins was opposed, you can't see her vote. So, that motion passes. Moving on to item number 3, process for adding agenda items to the meeting. I know we need to, as a council, have some discussion on this because our procedure is not really clear on adding things at the last minute. Our procedural bylaws at this point reads that the chair makes a decision on the urgency of bringing it to council. And that is usually okay when it's a public issue, so it's easy to, just talk about it. But I really think that we need to make sure that anything that's going to be added to the agenda is known ahead. And number one, making sure that we know what's coming on the agenda. It shouldn't be brought up at the very end, and that at the very least, in my opinion, we should make sure that the issue is shared before the meeting so that, we can make a good decision on it. But I'm open to other discussion items on that so that we're all in the same boat, because it's not clear in our procedural bylaw on how that should happen, especially for closed sessions and municipal affairs. I think I shared some of their responses that it should not happen at the meeting, and we need to make sure that we have a clear procedure that outlines that. That was their recommendation. So I think we should be looking at that and having some of those discussions, but just want to make sure everybody's on the same page as we move forward. Councillor Waco?
Is it not in the policy that if something is going to be added to the agenda at the last minute, that it has to be time sensitive, i.e. somebody is coming in and they're having something that's going to happen in between council meetings and they're looking for a donation of in kind or out of our community fund grant that we do, we just wouldn't be able to have another meeting. So that was my understanding, is that it's got to be time sensitive.
You're absolutely correct. That is correct. And the way our procedural bylaw is written is that decision on the urgency and the need to do it rests with the chair at this point. And again, that's another thing. Maybe we want to change that. So council makes a ruling on that versus the chair. But the way our procedural bylaw reads is the decision rests with the chair.
Sorry, who made the comment and what was the comment, Mayor?
The comment was from Councillor Wakel to say that is there not a provision to add things to the agenda? And I said, yes, there is. And it's just for those exact reasons. Something urgent comes up, it's very time sensitive, it needs to be addressed. My comments to all of that is that, yes, we should be able to add things at the last minute, but it should be discussed so it's not, ahead of time with at least the chair of the meeting so that they know what's coming down and can, it's not a last second decision that has to be made, but maybe before the meeting or, at least 10 minutes before the meeting starts so that it's, there's a heads up on it. And that would be especially true when it comes to closed session items is what I would be wanting to deal with. But so there's 2 questions. It's just making sure that there's prior notification. From my viewpoint, I think the procedure bylaw should make sure that there's prior notification. And number 2, I think the question would be, would it be the chair's discretion, or should council vote on it? Because I know in some councils, it's the council makes the decision on whether to add the agenda item or not, so. But again, those would be changes to our procedural bylaw, but I just wanted to start the sort of a bit of a discussion. And then we could look at changing our procedural bylaw to make sure that we address those issues. Any thoughts on that? Councillor Daneka?
Well, I think if somebody brings up an issue, and I think it should be a council decision, not just the chair to decide if it merits being discussed or to be an item that's added to the existing agenda.
Okay, just, Councillor Danaka had indicated that it should be a council decision on whether to add an agenda item. Okay, no other comments at this point, so, Councillor Martins?
Sorry, so no one else wants to say anything? We're ready to go to a vote on this?
Well, there's no motion on the floor at this point, we're just having a discussion. I guess I was leading to where I'm heading is to say I'd like to make a motion to revisit our procedural bylaw. And I wanted to make sure that we've got some guidance to our CAO on what we would like to see from the procedural bylaw, if we want to make changes.
Okay, so my first thought, may I comment or is there something, may I
Yes,
comment?
go ahead.
Okay, so the first thought that comes to mind is, you know, with all due respect, this is quite convenient timing, so so now you're saying that's okay, that's when I make the motion to go on camera last meeting, that's not okay. Like I want this, I think you're right, let's make some clarity around it, but let's not use it as a tool to shut down conversation. Also, preparedness is an interesting thing, right? So let's say that there's a camera discussion for discussion. You don't necessarily have to be prepared for a discussion. You know, like for example, last meeting, there was nothing to be prepared for. I mean, there was no preparation needed. This was just a discussion that was requested by mayor and council. And I will further add that I spoke with municipal affairs yesterday, and her quote was, council certainly can meet as mayor and council and ask, you know, for example, a CAO to step aside for a time. It's certainly allowable. So I'm not sure why I was shut down in last week's meeting. I still have no clarity or correctness around that.
I would just, we're not really going into that specific issue.
But it's related, Mayor, it is related. You know, yes, respectfully, it's related. I feel like this is coming to stop us from adding, to not be blindsided, but yet when I was blindsided, it's okay. By January 23rd, that's exactly what happened at whatever, 9 p.m. with no prior phone call notification, speaking of what's going on, but yet, yes, this is coming from last week's meeting where, you know, you feel, or somebody feels that should be made. I disagree. I think that council perfectly is within the legislation for us to meet in camera, you know, as a group.
It is, absolutely, I agree with that. And I'm specifically asking about when we're going into and adding agenda items, how it should be done. Because municipal affairs, when I talked to them, they said that there should be very clear on how that happens. And our procedure does not address that. And they feel that it should be addressed ahead of time. And just like you're saying, and that's why I want to clarify that, so this doesn't keep going and we're all on the same wavelength. That's where I'm at. And I'd like to, at the end of the day, address administration to make sure those things aren't happening in the future. For all cases.
Well, perhaps what would be helpful then for discussion is kind of suggesting what kind of changes you're looking to make. That might spur some further discussion. So I'd like to hear what kind of changes procedurally you're looking to make.
I'm looking to address how we add agenda items to our council agenda. Specifically, number one is, that's the agenda, that's my motion, is that we revisit and are adding agenda items from our procedural bylaw to address how and when we can add agenda items. So, did you catch that as a motion? Okay. All right, is there any other discussion on that?
Sorry, Mayor, maybe you've already said that, but so long as there is that opinion that comes back to council also has a provision for what if there is an urgent matter. It deals with, are you also looking to lump in camera and out of camera items the same? Because remember last meeting we had an 8.2, that was just a public edition. Are you looking in this opinion to have both those items delineated, where there's an opinion for in camera versus public? Because I know that there's been things added to the agenda in my time here at the town of High Prairie. We've added things without even question, most of them public, a few in camera. Are those going to be treated separately? So that's question one. What's the provision for urgency? What's the provision for?
Yeah, no, those are the questions that we want to get answered. And
Matter of the chair of me, or is it a matter of all of them? Is that the third thing?
you broke up a bit there, so we couldn't understand, but
Sorry,
you're asking about
sorry,
the, so number one is who makes the decision, and we want to revisit that. There was a comment that perhaps it should be all the council that decides on the urgency. And one of your other questions is it for public items and or in-camera items, how are those held? And I believe that they should be separate. They must, I think they have to be handled separately. So I think we should look at best practices around that and make sure we update so those are the two things that I was specifically thinking of. Okay, well, we'll do a quick vote and then, okay. I think we're all done with discussing that. Is there any other last second comments or not last second, but any last comments on this? Seeing none, all in favor? It is carried. So we will take a 10-minute break and then we'll go to our closed session.